Dad arrived to pick up his grandson for the weekend, opened the refrigerator, and saw it was empty. "Daughter, you earn 300,000. "Why is the child hungry?" he asked, surprised. Her husband emerged from the room and proudly declared, "I gave her salary to my mother." Dad calmly removed his jacket and did something I especially love him for. "And before we continue, please write which country you're from and how old you are." Enjoy listening. Marina's father always arrived unannounced but never entered abruptly. He would first knock softly, wait a few seconds, then turn the doorknob. He did this regardless of his mood, whether he was taking his grandson to the zoo or just helping change a light bulb on a Saturday. "You have to knock," he would say. "Every home has its own silence." On that occasion, Pavel Andreevich arrived early in the day when the courtyard was still dozing and the sun was just rising above the rooftops. He knocked on the door, waited for a soft tap, 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 and entered. Marina peeked out from the kitchen. Her hair was tied back and her face held that particular weariness people try to conceal. She saw her father and smiled. "Dad, you're right on time. Yaroslav is almost dressed." "Good morning," Pavel Andreevich replied simply. "No need to rush. Let's sit for 5 minutes. I'll have some tea. It's a long drive, and it's better for my grandson not to go on an empty stomach." Marina nodded and turned back to the stove. Pavel Andreevich took off his jacket, hung it on the back of a chair, and glanced into the room. His grandson, 7-year-old Yaroslav, was fiddling with his shoelaces, looked up at his grandfather, and put on a serious face, as if to say, "Since Grandpa's here, it means we have important business." They always had things to do. A bus ride to the museum, ice cream, discussions about why pigeons don't fight over crumbs. Pavel Andreevich went to the kitchen, stopped at the refrigerator, and opened it out of habit. The habit was ingrained from his service. Upon entering a home, he would take stock of how people lived, what they ate, and how things were arranged. The door creaked, and the white shelf gleamed with emptiness. On the top shelf, there was only a jar of mustard and half a lemon on a saucer. The second shelf held a plastic bottle of water. On the door, a bottle of kefir with an expiration date from yesterday and a pack of butter cut and rewrapped. Pavel Andreevich didn't slam the door shut. He gently pulled it closed with 2 fingers and only then spoke evenly, without reproach. "Daughter, why is it so empty in here?" Marina turned and, like someone caught mid-thought, said the first honest thing that came to mind. "We'll buy groceries later, Dad. I allocated the money for medicine. Yarek has a cold, and it's time to pay for his art class." Pavel Andreevich stood for a second, looked at the kettle, at the burner where water stirred quietly in a small pot. "You earn well," he said, not as a question, but as a reminder. "We're not struggling. I remember you said, 'It's enough, Dad, don't worry.'" Marina nodded. At that moment, the bedroom door on the other side slammed shut. Slippers shuffled across the floor. A zipper on a tracksuit jacket crackled. Igor, Marina's husband, a tall, unshaven man with a mug in his hand, entered the kitchen. His eyes were narrowed, not from the light, but from a habit of looking down on people. He immediately noticed Marina's father standing by the refrigerator. "Oh, the old man's here, early, like clockwork," he said, taking a sip of coffee. "Scrutinizing the fridge? Everything's under control." Pavel Andreevich disliked nicknames and pet phrases like old man or old lady. He looked at Igor as one looks at someone pretending to know everything but understanding little. "Yaroslav needs to eat breakfast," he said. "We have a trip today. The child needs to eat." Igor scoffed and put down his mug. "Who's arguing? We have a family budget after all, and if someone's hands are in the wrong place, well, I only have one mother." He turned to Pavel Andreevich as if flicking a stone towards a window and declared proudly, "I gave her salary to my mother. So what? Everything is decided correctly in our family. Marinka earns plenty. She won't be offended. And my mother is a pensioner. She needs it more." The kitchen felt suddenly hollow, not just the shelves. The air had been sucked out. Pavel Andreevich had no sharp retorts, no exclamations of shock. He simply slowly removed his jacket from the back of the chair, but didn't put it on. He folded it in half and placed it neatly on the chair. This gesture meant one thing to him. The conversation won't be on the go. It will be here and now, and it will be to the point. "Marina," he said softly, "go help Yaroslav with his shoelaces. Igor and I will talk for 2 minutes." Marina started to say something, but her father's gaze was steady and calm, not, "I will do everything, but I am doing what I must." She nodded and left. The slippers in the room shuffled faster. Yaroslav tried to hurry like an adult. Pavel Andreevich sat on a stool, placing his palms on the table. Igor remained standing, acting as if he controlled the outcome of the conversation. "Listen carefully," Pavel Andreevich said. "I'm asking once, and I mean it. What do you live on yourself?" Igor smirked. "Wherever I can. You know how hard it is to find work right now. I pick up odd jobs, but we have a family. We support the weak link. My mother is the weak link. It's hard for her. Medicine. Marina can't spend on everything." "Medicines are important," Pavel Andreevich agreed. "Let's do this then. Now you give me Marina's card if you have it, and any additional cards linked to her account. Then I'll take Marina and my grandson, and we'll go to the bank, close access, and set limits. As a man, you will go and find a job. Any job, but a job. My daughter's and my grandson's financial matters will be handled by my daughter, not you, starting today. Understand?" Igor snorted. "This is my house. I make the decisions, and it's none of your business where Marina transfers money." "He's my grandson," Pavel Andreevich said. "This is my daughter. While you live in this house, behave like a husband, not a messenger for your mother. I'll repeat, cards on the table." Igor started to protest, but not for long. He laughed until Pavel Andreevich's gaze became utterly direct, unblinking. Then he threw his mug into the sink, reached into the pocket of his tracksuit jacket, pulled out one card, then another. He retrieved a third card from his wallet on the refrigerator. He tapped them on the table. "Here, take them. Block them. Just don't touch my mother. My mother has nothing to do with this." "Your mother is not being touched," Pavel Andreevich replied calmly. "I'm speaking with you. You are an adult. You made the decision yourself, and you will face the consequences. Now it's simple. We are going to the bank. You stay home and think about how to proceed. When I return, we will talk again. And yes, while we're at the bank, you will go to the store with a list. Marina will leave the list. The child needs to eat proper food. Understood?" Igor wanted to object, to add more indignant words, but he choked on his own, "I decide." Pavel Andreevich's gaze wouldn't allow him to argue, not because he was older, but because that gaze spoke of experience, of order, of responsibility for others. Marina returned, her jacket on her shoulders. Yaroslav burst out of his room, proud, with his backpack as if ready for an expedition. Pavel Andreevich took the cards from the table, put them in his pocket, offered Marina his hand, and turned before the door. "Leave the list," he said simply. "He has money, so he knows where to get it. Let him remember now where products come from." Marina quickly scribbled on a piece of paper: bread, milk, eggs, chicken fillet, grains, apples, cheese, butter, vegetables, cookies, for Yaroslav. She placed the paper on the table. Igor took the paper, and at that moment something unreadable flickered across his face. Perhaps shame, perhaps surprise. He hadn't expected to be spoken to so calmly. Everything at the bank was swift. Pavel Andreevich remained silent while Marina spoke with the clerk. The clerk calmly explained limits, additional cards, and reissuing procedures. Marina signed a request to block all duplicates, prohibit remote transfers without owner confirmation, and set 2 levels of security for online banking. Notifications were set up on her phone. Marina looked at her father, and he nodded. That's how it should be. Then they went into the store. Pavel Andreevich walked beside the cart, silently placing items he always had at home: durum wheat pasta, canned stew for emergencies, a jar of honey, 2 kilograms of potatoes, carrots, onions, kefir, and cottage cheese. Marina smiled for the first time that morning. "Dad," she said softly, "you're doing everything right now. Just don't scold Igor too much. It's my fault." "I wasn't watchful." "No, it's my fault," he replied. The one who takes from your hands is at fault. You are not at fault for trusting. I am here." When they returned, Igor was sitting in the kitchen with a vacant stare. Next to him on the table lay a receipt. He had gone for groceries. He looked embarrassed, awkward, like someone asked to do something simple for the first time, but to do it correctly, not just haphazardly. "I brought it," he said. "Everything on the list." "Good," Pavel Andreevich replied. "Make your grandson a sandwich, then we'll talk." Marina winked at Yaroslav and led him to the room to hang up his jacket, check his homework. "Igor," Pavel Andreevich began, "let's not shout. No one is kicking you out of the house. But these are the rules of the house. The family's resources are managed by the family, not by your mother, uncle, or friend. You are a man. Go and earn. If you can't, then learn. I am not against helping your family. I am against feeding an adult man who considers it normal to give away someone else's salary. Understood?" "I'll find something," Igor grumbled. "I'll find a job. I'm not helpless." "I believe you," Pavel Andreevich nodded. "That's why we're doing this. Today, you gather your documents. Tomorrow, you go. Where you've been meaning to go for a long time. A report in the evening. Not to me, but to your wife. And yes, I will put a bag of grains, flour, and canned goods in the hallway. This is not charity. This is a guarantee that my grandson will not go without food. And don't think of saying we would have managed. You wouldn't have if the refrigerator was empty." Igor was silent. It seemed for the first time in a long time he wasn't hearing punishment or shame, but a simple plan. Do this, do that. It's comfortable to live by such schemes when you've spread yourself thin, but admitting it is difficult. The day turned out unexpectedly calm. Yaroslav went with his grandfather for half the day. A museum of old cars, ice cream, feeding pigeons in the park, endless stories. Marina, at home, arranged grains in jars, laid out napkins, placed a vase of apples so her son could see there was food at home. She called her mother and briefly explained the situation. Her mother sighed and said, "Well, your Igor, as always." "We'll manage," Marina replied. In the evening, Pavel Andreevich returned with his grandson. Yaroslav brought a small book about cars from the museum and a drawing, a rectangle on 4 circles. Pavel Andreevich placed another bag of groceries in the hallway. "For starters," he said, "I would have brought it anyway." Don't argue. They had dinner together. Igor came late, but he came with specifics. He had 2 numbers in his phone, a warehouse manager and a project foreman. Both offered work starting Monday. Igor said this as someone who didn't believe himself that he had done anything useful. "I'll go tomorrow," he added, swallowing his tea too quickly. "I'll start at the warehouse in the morning." "Good," Pavel Andreevich said. "Just don't quit after a day, and tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll come again. I want to take Yaroslav to the doctor. His nose is stuffy. Marina, prepare the card and insurance policy." Igor didn't object. Igor shook his head. As Pavel Andreevich was leaving, he once again slowly, almost symbolically, draped his jacket over his shoulders. This gesture now meant something different. Not "we will talk," but "we are at a new stage." At the doorway, he leaned towards Marina and said softly, "I am here, but you have to live your lives. I won't live for you, but we have set boundaries." "Thank you, Dad," Marina replied. "I understand." The following days unfolded differently. Igor actually started at the warehouse, returning in the evening, tired and dirty, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't complain about a bad shift, but said, it was fine. On the 3rd day, he couldn't help but complain about the foreman, the heavy work, the disrespectful treatment. Pavel Andreevich sat in the kitchen and listened. Then he asked, "How much did you lift today?" "Not much." Igor waved his hand, but then honestly, "A lot." "Well then, there's something to hold on to. Endure it, you'll earn. If you can't stand it, find something else. But not for home, not for the sofa. Home is not a place to escape. Home is a place to rest." During these days, Marina did what she knew how to do. She created a family budget, divided it into essentials and postponable expenses. She wrote on a piece of paper, "Groceries so much, utilities so much, children's activities so much. She hung it on the refrigerator with a magnet. In the evening, the three of them discussed where they could cut back and where they couldn't. Did they argue? No. For the first time, no, because there was a list on the table, not just words. Igor didn't immediately accept the new order. As someone accustomed to easy solutions, the old mechanism kept clicking within him. Can I just? Well, just once. For Mom. He called his mother the next day, and not realizing he was speaking loudly, explained that things were tight now, but would improve soon. His mother was indignant, demanding he transfer at least 5,000 immediately. Igor wriggled out of it, promising by Monday. Pavel Andreevich, sitting in the kitchen with a newspaper, heard snippets and didn't interfere. Then he walked to the window, opened it to air out the conversation, and quietly said, Igor, family is not an ATM. The ATM is where you work, not in the house. Remember this simple rule. And explain it to your mother. If she doesn't understand, turn off your phone. Marina didn't ignore the fact that Igor wasn't perfect and could falter, but for the first time, she felt she wasn't carrying the family alone. Her father was beside her. Her own clear head with lists and plans was beside her. Her son was beside her, for whom she shouldn't put off cookies until the weekend or buy milk later instead of on time. 2 weeks passed. The refrigerator stopped being empty. The food became simple and understandable. Soups, porridges, baked chicken, salads. Yaroslav stopped begging for cookies right now. He knew what he would have for his afternoon snack. Once a week, Marina went to the market, bought a kilogram of cottage cheese, 2 kilograms of apples, and a whole bunch of greens. Pavel Andreevich sometimes drove her, helped carry the bags, and his hand didn't let go of the bag handles until they reached the doorstep. Igor returned tired day after day, occasionally erupted in anger, resorting to his old habit of turning the conversation into a joke, as sharp as a needle. Marina would then say curtly, "Stop. Quiet now." Igor, to his own surprise, fell silent. Perhaps exhaustion dried up his sharpness, or perhaps the new order truly focused on actions, not impressions. On Saturday, Pavel Andreevich arrived early again to pick up his grandson. He knocked, entered, took off his jacket. The refrigerator didn't creak with emptiness. Behind the door, jars and containers stood neatly. Sliced bread lay on the table. In the room, Yaroslav was already packing his small backpack. An apple, a toy car, a book. Marina put on her jacket and smiled. Igor came out of the room, approached Pavel Andreevich, and unexpectedly extended his hand. "Thank you," he said. "If not for you back then." He didn't finish. "I understand. I'm trying. It's hard, but I'm trying." "Hard means you're moving forward," Pavel Andreevich nodded. "Easy means you're standing still. Moving is always harder, but that's what the road is for." He took off his jacket again, but this time to hang his scarf on Yaroslav. The wind in the park was biting, and in this gesture was exactly why Marina loved him most. He always did what needed to be done, calmly and on time. A month later, the house felt completely different. Not because everything had magically improved, but because each day was like a brick. Igor hadn't transformed into the perfect husband. He still had slips, moments of difficulty and irritation, but he no longer touched Marina's salary. He brought his own, whatever it was, and put it on the table. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Marina stopped keeping her phone in her hand at night. There was no need to catch SMS about deductions. Yaroslav learned a simple rule: cookies after soup, and he stopped tearfully asking for them in advance. Igor came home after work, placed pears bought on the way on the table, sat down, took off his hat, glanced at the notebook lying on his nightstand, and wrote just as briefly, "Worked a shift today, paid for art class, fixed the outlet. Tomorrow I'll get my medical ID so they take me to sites more often." He didn't show this notebook to Marina, nor did she ask. And for the first time in those long months, instead of a heavy stone in her chest, she felt a small, smooth pebble. It's when you believe not in words, but in steps. Pavel Andreevich began to visit less often. Not because everything was perfect, but because things were moving forward. He would appear as before, knock, wait, enter, hang his jacket, glance into the refrigerator, not with suspicion, but with habit, smile normally, pour himself some tea, and leave, as soon as he felt that their life, not his, was proceeding. His grandson, returning from his grandfather's, would tell stories about cars, parks, new words, and funny signs. Grandpa says good words are like new spare parts. Everything seemed to be working, but with them, it's better, Yaroslav would say, yawning. I'll collect words too. And indeed, he began to collect them. Thank you. You're welcome. I can do it. Later. Now. Needed. Possible. One evening, Pavel Andreevich brought a small, thick-bottomed frying pan into the house. Take it, he told Marina. It's convenient for making cutlets and frying eggs faster. Dad, we have one, she smiled. This one is better, he insisted stubbornly, lowering his voice. Tell Igor, if he ever again takes money from your pocket for his mother, I won't just take off my jacket, I'll take off my gloves, and our conversation won't be with words. Let him not push it. Marina nodded. She knew he could, but it was better if he didn't have to. On Saturdays, the house began to smell of baking, on weekdays of soup, and in the evenings of children's shampoo, sometimes of tiredness, the tiredness of adults carrying their home. This tiredness wasn't rubbery or viscous, but honest. It's normal to sleep with it. Igor eventually moved from the warehouse to a construction site. He started coming home late, took off his boots in the hallway, washed his hands as if to wash off factory dust, sat on the edge of a chair, and ate his soup in silence. Sometimes he would stare out the window for a long time, where a street light cast a circle of light on the pavement. Sometimes, suddenly, like a child, he would show Marina his notes. Another week without relapses. Bought Yarek a new notebook. Marina looked not at the words, but at his eyes. And in them, for the first time in a long time, there was not, I'll take, but I'll bring. On the day everything began, Pavel Andreevich didn't kick Igor out, didn't hurl loud words, didn't slam doors. He simply set boundaries and showed how to step over those boundaries for those who could take responsibility for their actions, without pride, without grand pronouncements. But I am a man, his mother had said, not asking. Marina often thought later, why do I love my father so much? And each time she caught herself with the same thought. She loved him for knowing when to arrive and when to leave, for his actions having no lingering consequences or accumulated grievances, for the fact that seeing an empty refrigerator, he didn't say, what a homemaker you are, but the child must eat, for not leaving his grandson for later, for doing exactly enough to let them proceed on their own. Months later, when Marina opened another page in her notebook, she wrote briefly, live with my family, cherish those with me, be grateful to those who are near. Happiness is quiet. It doesn't like loud words. It likes it when in the morning you put on the kettle, open the refrigerator, and there are milk, eggs, cheese, and apples. Everything in its place. And when you know that if trouble comes, they will knock, not burst in, but knock, and then enter.